Gracias por escuchar otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. Otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa, un espacio que hemos creado para poder compartir nuestras historias, para compartir cuáles son nuestros challenges, what have been the lessons learned and what we can unlearn. How do we share so many similarities with everyday leaders in our community? And sharing the space with me is here today. Once again, Fatima. Fatima, muy buenas tardes. How are you?
Good.
How do you like it? You're a pro now. This is your second episode.
Getting more used to it.
That's right.
We're getting there.
And so this next guest, Fatima, I've been asking her for a while now, probably almost a year. And so now she's made some time to be here with us. Andrea Martinez, who worked with two previous governors, who could be anywhere, but has been spent, the last 20 years at CPLC now?
20 years, yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for coming here today.
It's my pleasure. Anything for you, Maria.
Thank you.
And thank you for saying no to her all those other times.
You said yes to
I can be here during this episode. The universe works in amazing ways. It lines up.
Yes, you're right.
It lines up.
So in my office for over a year, I think, I have a very special edition of the largest newspaper in the state. And I just want everybody that is not able to see right now on your screen. It's Andrea's beautiful portrait. And the headline says, "Those who identify as Black and Latino make up a growing share of the U.S. Hispanic population." Andrea, I just love how candid you are and you were in this story and what a difference it has made. I know you've heard from people. I've heard as well in sharing this story. Tell us about your family and what it means for you to share that history and what we can learn from it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It was it was different for me. I don't know that I anticipated to be on the front page above the fold. Apparently, that's a big deal. People told me that, so
it's
I didn't know.
Huge deal. Yes, the first time CPLC with anyone ever made it. By the way,
What I love about that photo, though, that's on the front page of the newspaper is in the back of me is a mural of a tree. And during the COVID years, some of our staff from Surprising Elmira, Arizona, wanted to come and beautify our little campus because it's called Plaza de las Rosas, and there are no roses there at all. And so
we have trees, 2 trees,
and one might have died. And so they came and did murals, and that was one of my favorite murals that they did was this tree that represented all of us. Better? And that is one of my favorite pictures that their work is represented on there. Being Afro-Latina, I'm Black. I present as Black. I'm Mexican. My family identifies as Mexican-American. I have a very, very large family here in the valley of Maricopa County in Arizona. And I'm one of very few Black family members. Our last reunion, which was in November of last year, was for over 1,000 people here in the Valley, family members.
Wow.
Very few of us are Black. And so even within Latino communities and neighborhoods and families, there still exists a Black and brown divide. And it's what I've lived. It's what I've lived before I was even born. And so that's what I was sharing in that article is my journey with my family, my journey in the church, my journey in life, being Afro-Latina, being different, being unique, being rejected being rejected, being disowned before I was even born. My mother and I were disowned because she was having a Black child. And my mom ended up marrying someone who was Mexican who adopted me. And so I grew up in this Mexican environment. And then she moved us out a little bit further east to try to get us into a better school because she knew that education was important. We had lots of... our family was large, but we had lots of poison in our tree and lots of cycles to be broken. And one of the cycles was poverty. And one of the things that my mom saw that could be different for her children was education. And so that came across to me very early. And that was my way out, was education. And so I used that to educate myself about my cultures, about society and how it worked and what is shared and what is not shared, what is accessible, what is not accessible. And education was my way to break cycles, to change the trajectory of our family forever. And so it was a tough journey that I struggled with for a long time until I learned to love myself. And once I learned to love my uniqueness,
Right.
Being Black, being Mexican, being left-handed, being gay, being different. I felt just different every day in every way, from my family to my profession to church. Rejection was woven through all of that. And it wasn't until I flipped it and began to look at all those differences as my strengths.
Exactly.
Yeah, that made a difference for me.
So what did your mom had to say about you sharing your story and being public about it and sharing with so much pride?
That's a good question because I was concerned about that. But you know what happened is within my program, I run early childhood development for Chicanos Por La Causa. And I used to do keynote speeches for my staff every year. And I had shared a lot of my story throughout those speeches. And I invited my mom and my dad to the one that I was going to talk to about them.
Good.
So they wanted them to hear it from me, and I wanted them to know how I was telling the story. And so they had heard me talk about it before, but my mom's father is still alive, my tata. Lots of the poisonous branches of our tree are still living. And I often have to make decisions about what am I going to affirm and what am I not going to affirm, and how am I going to do that? And how am I going to do it in a way that builds bridges and moves us away from the poison and towards breaking cycles and not creating chaos and drama and hurting people? So she was okay. She was familiar with how I told the story already.
That's great. That's fantastic. And your journey has been, you've worked for two former governors, and you could have been anywhere, but yet you've been educating for almost 20 years, right? Our largest program. So now you oversee and support 800 leaders, close to 800 in 4 states. 4 states. So how was that journey as a leader? How do you unfold that and being able to connect and support so many of our kids? Every time you talk about Head Start Center and the program and your team, it just inspires me so much. So please share.
I love them. I do take an enormous amount of time and effort to visit every single site and get to meet every staff member that I can, and do it multiple times. Relationships are so key. Relationships are key for our littlest ones in their foundation, the first 5 years of their life. When they have caring relationships and adults around them, whether it's their family or in childcare, that creates a foundation for how their brain develops for the next stages of their childhood and for the rest of them their journey as an adult. It's the same for adults. Relationships are key and connections are key. And so I spend a lot of time and effort sometimes to my own detriment, getting to know my sites and staff and states and communities because they're our face. They're the face of Chicanos Por La Causa in Texas, in New Mexico, in Colorado, in Arizona. And in all of the communities there. And most of them are rural communities. Most of them are not urban, big, sprawling urban communities like Phoenix. Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the United States. Most of our communities are not that. And most of our staff are from those communities. And so for me connecting with them where they live and work speaks, I think, volumes. And it's what works for me. And I trust my leaders. I assess and make sure that people are in the best position that suits their strengths. And I trust them. I don't need them to be perfect. I don't need them to be me. I need them to do them the best that they can. And we're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And so as long as we can talk about them and learn from them, then that's how we evolve and grow. And that's really my foundation. My foundation really is love, connection, and relationships.
And you also have like this special tone when you send out that message to them. And so it's their full self that you want your staff to be able to connect with you, to understand that mistakes are bound to happen, but we need to learn from it and then move on from it. So what do you do to stay grounded? Speaking of, what gives you so much peace to be able to share with others and wisdom?
Well, peace happens sometimes because I am human. But it is really important to be rooted. I find this year, 2024, I decided was going to be the year. There's a lot of shift and change in my life, professionally, personally, on every level. And I decided that I needed to really think about how I took care of my mind, how I took care of my body, and how I took care of my soul, my spirit, my mental health, my physical health, and my spiritual health. And I really thought about, what does that mean? We say that all the time and we have New Year's resolutions, but what does that mean? And I was really intentional about what that meant. And so I am reflective of that all the time. Every day, I am trying to be thoughtful of what I put into my body, what I eat. I'm trying to take care of my heart in terms of exercising and physical activity, which then takes care of my whole body. And it's important to me to take care of my soul and my spirit, and how I share my love. And so I make time to be active. If it means getting up at 4 a.m. to go walk the dog or to go on a hike with my hiking buddy, I make time for it. I make time to move. I make time to incorporate those things that I wanted to prioritize for myself. So being rooted in that has been helpful to me and important.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about Fatima, who is the newest member of our team and now co-host of our podcast, is how you two were connected at this event without knowing what each of them, because there's nearly 8,000 of the CPLC familia. But there was something that, you approach Andrea and then you had to talk about that conversation.
Yeah, so a conversation that we were having right before we started rolling the cameras. And it was actually the first conversation that I had with Andrea that planted a seed of inspiration in me. And that conversation was about this intersection that she was at between choosing 2 different positions and her way of like how she went about it with choosing. And I feel like it's a really interesting story, if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
Yeah. So I, when I was deciding on the 2 positions, Washington, D.C., or the building that was burning at Chicanos Por La Causa that my friend referred me to, I said, Ma, my dad was in the hospital at the time, and I said, Mama, they want me to go work at CPLC, at Chicanos Por La Causa, and they want me to run this agency that they just brought on. And she said, ay, mija. I'm like, what is that? Where's the joy? There's a battle for me, Mom. And she said, ay, mijita. She said, Chicanos Por La Causa is the good old Latino boy network. And mija, they're not ready for you. They're not ready to hear you. They're not ready for your voice. And I said, well, Mom, I don't know. Domingo's there. I want to work for Domingo. Andres is there. I'll be there. I'll go do it for a year, maybe 3.
20 years later.
3, yeah, exactly. 20 years later, here I am. I fell in love with the work that we do closest to the earth. And I stayed through some really crazy times. I stayed because I absolutely believe in the transformation and the opportunity that our programs provide for the littlest ones and their families. And we work with their whole family.
Yeah.
And so we get to see these babies come back as adults, and they're teachers and police officers and firefighters and doctors and accountants and bankers and running foundations and professional teams. And they remember their Head Start teacher, they remember their family service worker, and they want to come back and they want to give back. And so our programs transform families forever. Forever generations is what I usually say. And I fell in love with what we do, and I fell in love with the people who do it. And so I stayed. And this is my purpose. This is my ikigai. It's what I live for, and what I learned that I'm really good at in terms of macro systems and creating leaders, developing leaders, even over 4 states. Holy cow.
Now, right?
Yeah.
See what I told you? Every time you hear her talking about her program, is just like, I wanna do this.
Because I love it so much. It's genuine love. I genuinely love them and what we do.
Yeah, I can see that. So we're talking also about the historical moment that we're undergoing here at CPLC. And I remember Alicia said that one of her first texts was from you telling me about what you said and what transpired.
My first text?
You're making history. That's what you said.
Oh my gosh.
And so in 54 years, we have our first soon-to-be president and CEO, and right now interim president and CEO, the first woman in 54 years.
Yeah, she is it. She's the one. I believed that actually a while ago. Should change occur, my vision was that it would be her. And it's a pivotal moment. It's transformative. We are evolving. We are at a time and place to shift the conversation forever. And she's the one. She's the one. She is making history, and I'm very proud of her. She is capable. She has weathered every single storm that has come through CPLC for all the time that she's been here. And we've been through some tough times, financially tough times. So she has been a part of all of them. She's been a part of all of the deals. She's been a part of all of the stealing from Peter to pay Paul situations that we've had when we couldn't make payroll, to us being so strong and well-respected now. She's had a role in all of that. And now she is the face and the lead, and I'm hoping that is solidified soon.
Shifting gears for a little bit, we were talking earlier about, a different topic, but when Fatima reached out and you said yes to her. You talk about some, and then I also follow you, and then you share really some insights in your videos. But I'd like for you to expand a little bit on rejection. You mentioned, rejection and whether you've experienced it personally or professionally, and how do we deal with that? How do you come from that and flourish?
It's hard. Rejection is hurtful. It's tricky. I've experienced rejection most of my life in many ways, for many reasons, and I think that if we can look at how it can strengthen us, I think that might help one move through it. I'm really one that comes from, I don't compartmentalize well. Some people do. I deal with it all. And I really allow myself, and I've learned that I needed to do this, I allow myself to sit in it, whatever that feeling is. If it's joy and glee, if it's rejection and whatever I'm feeling from that, or if it's anger or depression, I allow myself to sit in it so that I can move through it. Not to stay there, but to move through it. And so I allow myself to be fragile. I allow myself to have emotions. I allow myself to be in a place where others can protect me and support me, and where I can be vulnerable in a new way so that I can move through it. And then afterwards, I reflect and think, okay, all right, so what did I learn from all that? That hurt. And it was very painful, but what do I take from it? What can I learn? What can I do different? Or what did I learn about the other person? Or what did I learn about my job? Or what did I learn about that leader? And those are the lessons that I take. And so rejection is difficult, and rejection can be detrimental. It can take lives. And at the same time, we can find a way to use it as a tool to make us stronger, which women do all the time, women of color specifically.
Yeah, you're right. So after rejection, there should be reflection and then action.
Yes. It's helpful.
It does.
We're not always able to do it in that way, but if you can find a rhythm and make it a habit, it becomes easier to move through it.
So, prior to CPLC, so most of your career has been spent on supporting family and child-driven services. Let's take a step back. Tell us about that experience and working through after college and your experiences in other field outside of nonprofit.
Outside of CPLC?
Outside of nonprofit.
Is there life outside of CPLC? I don't even remember. I wanted to go to a university really bad. And I was eager to get through my education and get out, make money, and change my family, really. And we ran into challenges, and I had to go to a community college. And I was really, really angry and upset about it, and I had to figure out how to pay for it. So I had to work full-time, go to school full-time, and figure out how to make it all happen. And I remember thinking, well, I want to go in business. I want to go make money. I need to, create all this opportunity for my family. And so I kind of like college students, you just don't really know what you want, but you kind of might think. And so I changed my major a few times, but that wasn't helping me finish fast. And so, and I needed to transfer over to the university. And I remember I had a math class, and there were a couple of Black professors at the community college. And there was one math class that I took, and it was taught by an African-American female, and she was really hard. And I was actually really good in math, and I did really well in her class, but I was really shy. And so on one of my tests or homeworks, I don't remember which one it was, she wrote a note and said, "See me after class." And I thought, oh my God, she thinks I'm cheating. I don't know. Why does she want to talk to me? What did I do? I don't even talk in class. I'm like the first one in my seat. So I was stressed out. So after class, I sat in my chair, and she waved for me to come up because she figured out who I was. And I said, did I do something wrong? And she smiled and laughed in the most endearing way and said, I just wanted to see who this student was that was excelling in my class and doing this incredible work.
Oh,
she said, I wanted to meet you. And so that affirmation was everything to me. So I said, well, I'm going to go be a math major. Maybe I can end up at NASA. I can go into engineering. I can teach math if I wanted. So I like it and I'm good at it. And she said I'm good at it. And so I went to go see the first advisor I could see. It was an older white man. And I said, I'm going to be a math major. So let's lay it out. And I want to transfer to ASU and da-da-da-da. And he looked at me and said, didn't even look at my paperwork. He said, you're not good enough in math to be a math major, so I wouldn't suggest that route. Let's look for something else for you.
Oh my God.
And almost in the same breath, almost in the same day, I went from feeling validated and supported to stuffed down and minimized. And so I didn't become a math major. He quenched that for me. I did figure out what I wanted to do. And so originally I was in banking and business, and I ended up falling in love with sociology. Another African-American woman was teaching lots of sociology classes, and I fell in love with the idea of communities and systems and how it works. And I was able to see myself in all the things that happened in the community that I struggled with. And then I was able to take an eagle eye view and look at some of the factors that affected and try to understand how it works and how do you influence that? That was always my question. How do I influence that? So I'm in it and this is what I'm experiencing, but who's making the decisions? Who's at the table? Where does the power come from? How do you shift it? How do you get to the table? What if the door is closed? How do you get in? And so I fell in love with that part of it, and that led me to working in nonprofits, in behavioral health services. I met Veronica Peña. I worked for a woman named Veronica Peña for a few years, and she changed my life. We always say that I'm the daughter that she never birthed, but we're connected in that way. And she was the best person at my wedding, and I love her so much. And she's really, she changes how I think about the world, and she challenges me, and I like to be challenged. It's dangerous when everyone around you thinks the same as you. Your algorithms and your social media are very dangerous because it affirms what you already know and think.
Yes.
There's no challenging dialogue. There's no being able to disagree and agree to disagree. I mean, that was the beauty of getting together and having food and drinks at people's homes and bantering about things and disagreeing. We don't do that anymore. We look for affirmation, the same. So she challenges me in that way, and I appreciate that. So I started in a different way, thinking about business, ended up falling in love with systems, and working with children and families for 30 years, over 30 years.
I think that basically summarizes how rejection is redirection. Because you received that affirmation that got you your emotions so high, being like, oh, I'm going to become a NASA rocket scientist. Like, I'm so good at math, to then going to your counselor and then be like, you're not good enough. Them rejecting you. But because of that rejection, you were like, okay, well, maybe I'll try sociology. And you could have been a NASA or science rocket scientist, but you probably wouldn't have done the impact you've done today.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is a lot greater. I mean, because we can send
anyone
rockets,
to NASA.
but the impact you have with your almost 800 liters, like that is like, who else would have done it?
Yeah,
besides
I
you?
appreciate that, and I love how you phrase that. I might have to ask you to use that in the future. So, but I will credit you. But yeah, so universe works in interesting ways, and sometimes we want to control the outcomes, and we don't always have control. And sometimes you have to just let it be and flow like water, not just be laissez-faire and not take anything into consideration, but When you flow like water, you end up where you're supposed to be anyway. So
there's that saying that's like, tell the universe or God or whatever you believe in your plan, and they'll look at you and they'll laugh at you.
Right, exactly.
Because they're like, it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So we were talking about leadership also earlier. I wonder, and I never asked you this question. I wonder, how do you see different? How does it gender play a role in leadership and how you are as a leader, or what you see that maybe you don't? And like, are women and men different leaders? Because you've had the two.
Yeah,
right?
I have. And I love both of them for different reasons. And I appreciate my experience with both of them. I needed both of them, actually. And I love, in the childcare industry and early childhood education, it's very woman focused. My workforce is probably 93% female. And so when we get a male teacher, oh my God, I jump for joy because I think it's so important. I think male and female energy is very important. I think that as a society, I don't know that we do a great job socializing from early on. And I don't know that it's maybe the best approach that we use, but it's what happens. And it does create different types of leaders because of how we socialize boys and how we socialize girls.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I was recently talking to a good friend of mine, actually from the community college. She was my advisor, and she was talking about her relationship with her son and some challenges. And at the time, I had two other friends who were talking about their challenges with their sons and adult sons. And I said, why is that? And I don't have children. I mean, I have 2,000 children in my program.
But many over the years too.
And I asked her, why is it that we struggle with sons? And it's right now, it's just popular right now. And she said, this was her answer. She said, we approach boys differently. And especially in families of color, Latino families specifically, they are revered. And so from the moment they are born, and my brother, this too, my brother is the king and queen and prince and princess of our family. That's it. That's just, you just have to accept it. That's what it is, We revere them in a different way. And so they grow up being revered. And so that's what's expected. Women of color don't typically grow up in that environment. And so we're usually the doers, we're usually the fixers, we're usually the caretakers, we do all of those other things and play all of those other roles and go work and birth children and iron clothes or whatever we're doing. And so it creates different styles. It creates different environments and it creates different approaches, but we need them both.
Yeah.
We need them both. I think both leaders are integral in where we need to go.
And for you also, you mentioned right after college, while you were going to college, Papo Domingo had an impactful, role in your life at the time. Certainly made you want to consider coming back.
Yeah.
And so how was his leadership style? What was it that resonated with you at that time when you were trying to figure out this is what I'm going to do, or I need to go in a different path?
He showed us that he was a real person. He talked about his history. He talked about his challenges. He talked about his journey. He welcomed me into his home. I was a part of his family. I was so much a part of his family is when he died, myself and another person arranged all of his services, everything. We did everything. And he showed the humanness of a leader, and he understood the power of women leaders at a time when my mom was like, "Ay, mijita." and he represented a different way of thinking. He was well-read. I loved that he was well-read. Whatever he said, if he quoted a book or an author, as soon as I left, and we didn't have internet like we have now on our phones back then. There was maybe dial-up somewhere and it took forever to get on. And so your research, you had to go to the library. And so whatever he mentioned, I either went to go check out the book from the library or I found a place to buy it and I read it. And I read it again. I read everything he mentioned. And that made a difference to me.
You were observing everything the humanness of his leadership. That's really awesome. And another thing that Fatima may not know about you.
You don't we talk a lot about we chat.
I do. Okay. You love music.
I do love music. Oh my gosh. That is a part of my rootedness, actually. Yes. Yeah.
How do you do that? How did music become such a big role? And what's your favorite music?
Oh my goodness, Maria Jesus. It's like choosing a favorite child. Music is a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But art, creativity and art is a big part of my life as well. I love museums and art. I actually write essays and poems, and I play instruments, just not like very well, but I have a drum set. Music is integral.
A guitar, we can make a band.
There you go. I love it. I know how to play. What you gonna play? Do you sing? We need to sing. Do you sing?
See? The flute?
We're gonna figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I don't know how to play any instruments.
The clave.
With auto-tune.
No, music is a part of everything I do. Everything I do. I love live music. I have music all the time at work, at home. Different types of music.
What was your first concert?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I've been going to concerts since I was probably a tween.
Really?
And you know what's funny is that I saved all of my ticket stubs. I could probably tell you, but I haven't. But I'm also going through a change in life right now, and I just am getting all of my stuff back. So I'm not really sure where that file is. But I don't remember my first concert.
What were we into then? What kind of music is it?
Probably R&B. I was a hip hop, an East Coast hip hop fan.
Oh, there was a difference.
There's a
West
very big
and the East Coast
very big
really
difference.
at it in the 90s.
Yeah.
You probably don't remember Fatima, but Veronica, who's here in the studio.
I wasn't even a thought. No, barely even a fetus.
Hip Hop Wars.
Yeah, but also
East Coast. But you were living in the West.
Yes, Maria. Is that judgment?
No.
Is that judgment?
I wonder what connection you had to the East Coast aside from the music.
Because
usually there's an emotional connection.
Because it was more artistic. It was poetic. It was about social justice. There was a whole bunch of different stuff happening in New York that was then, and it started before the West Coast actually. And so I was attracted to the cerebral part of it and the rhythms and the melodies. They were just different. They were different. But at the same time, I grew up hearing cumbias, rancheras, mariachi. I actually remember I played the violin when I was younger, and I wanted to play. My cousin played in a mariachi, and at that time, there were very few women, and unless you sang. You weren't you didn't play an instrument, and I didn't sing. So I wanted to play the violin and the mariachi, and that just wasn't in the cards. It wasn't going to happen for me. I got no. And I wasn't that good anyway, but that's what I wanted to do. In my head.
In your head, you were perfect for it. Yes, it's the same way with me. And ballet folclóricos.
That too.
I remember I was going to school, and at the time in elementary school, they chose whoever was going to participate in a particular, performance. And I always went, and I was never chosen. I was always the last one. And I was like, but I'm just as good as
Right.
That's what I thought.
Of course. You know what? I remember with Ballet Folklorico for me is that my hair wouldn't do what others did. And so I felt like I didn't belong there.
You think so?
That's how I felt at the time.
But usually they were like really tight. It's not like...
It wasn't the
so?
same.
I love your
hair. For me, it was. Now that's different. I love my hair too. But at the time as a child, all I saw were the differences and why I wasn't like everybody else.
Yeah.
Wasn't my voice. I always had confidence in my bad voice, but I sing in the shower.
I mean, you listen to enough music, I think, to sing very well.
Yeah. Don't ask those who love me. They will be honest. But it's fun.
Yeah. So what fills up your tank? Like when you're really feeling down, what is it that, fills up your cup? What is it that you do?
Sunrises and sunsets fill my tank. You'll see that probably often on my social media, just because it never gets old to me, ever. The sunrise and sunset. Music, live music specifically, actually. I need to drink a little bit of water.
Yeah. Yeah, sunsets and sunrise. I'm like, it's the start. Sunrise is the start of a new day. You have another opportunity. You feel alive. You can, undo or redo or unlearn and relearn. It's just so much potential that you see certainly at the very beginning. And at the end, it's like, yes, I made it.
Yeah. It's very peaceful. Yeah, a very peaceful feeling. Yeah. I also love to read. And so I love word usage, creative use of words, and clever authors and challenging authors. And that rejuvenates me in a different way. Because it takes me out of, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're talking about reading. I remember about another conversation we had where you were talking about...
Because we chatting, Fatima. We be chatting. We're old friends.
About you had done... uploaded this video on your social media about one of my favorite books, and the author is Dominguez Ruiz.
Don Miguel Ruiz.
And so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about is it the four testaments?
Close, yeah. Four agreements.
Four agreements.
Same idea. Same idea.
Blinking out.
Same idea. The four agreements. Yes, they're so simple. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote this book about the four agreements, Toltec wisdom. And they're very simple agreements. That's what we were talking about. But they're so hard. But if you can live by them and remind yourself to live by them, it really can transform your days. It can transform your relationships. It's don't make assumptions. You got to ask one or two more questions. Don't take things personally. Always be impeccable with your word. Do what you say what you do, and always do your best. Simple, yet so difficult.
Hard.
I don't think I got to ask you though, which one's your favorite out of the four?
Right, it changes actually. It shifts depending on what's going on in my life. And right now, what I'm really drawn to right now is don't make assumptions. Because coming off of, I'm getting divorced right now. And I think part of why our relationship failed from my perspective and my experience is because we made too many assumptions. We didn't ask the one or two or three additional questions to clarify. And what ends up happening is that you look at life through your lens. And so whatever is said, then you interpret it through your experience. And that's not necessarily what that person is saying. It's not what that person is sharing. And then you create the narrative that goes along with it. And you can be way off. And we ended up being way off and ended up growing in our divide rather than growing closer. And so for me, that was a very big lesson in what assumptions did I make? And how many more questions could I have asked to understand better what she was going through or what she was saying? And the same for her, but I don't have any control over her. I only have control over myself and my own experience and what lessons I'm going to take. And so right now, that's my favorite right now. So, and I use it everywhere. I use it at work. I use it with my colleagues, with who I report to, with my leaders, with staff. I use it in my personal life with relationships and friends because I don't want to create the narrative for you. I don't want to create it for you. I want you to tell me your narrative. And I want to see life through your lens, not through mine or what I think it looks like. I want you to tell me, and I want to understand it through your vision and experience. And so that's what's guiding me right now.
I love it. It's so much empowering, though, because you're allowing the other person to really create their own narrative and to understand what picture you want.
Exactly.
Right? To be that you want to formulate together with, and making sure that they have the same understanding. I wonder, how do you embrace change? I know you talked also about that on your videos.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to share a little bit of it.
Well, I always say my Arizona, I call my Arizona leaders Jedi. They're my Jedi Knights, and they have a Jedi Council. That may or may not make me Yoda, but
no.
We'll see. We'll see. Oh, no.
It's really adorable, though.
And so they one of my Jedi Knights here in Arizona remembers that I always say shift happens. Shift happens.
Shift.
And I learned that from Veronica Pena. Shift happens always, and it's inevitable. And most of the time, we don't like it. We're not prepared for it. We maybe tense up a little bit because we want things to be status quo and run how they have. But I've been using this paper form for 20 years. Why do I have to change this paper form? And so change is inevitable and shift is inevitable. But for me, in terms of work and even personally too, it's how you communicate. How you communicate what's coming or what's about to happen or what's just happened, how you allow conversation to happen about it. And so sometimes it's just going to happen, but you can have conversations about it. You can process it. And even if it's not today, it can be, tomorrow or in a week. Be open. You can be open to revisiting the conversation. And I'm open to revisiting the conversations when it comes to really anything, but specifically shift and change, because it's hard. It's hard for people.
Yeah, you're right. You just have to accept it and figure the best way to embrace it.
Yeah, yeah.
Andrea has been such a long time coming. I want to reiterate that. And thank you, Fatima, for helping making it possible.
Fatima, you did great. You did great, Fatima.
It was Mara who sent the invitation, though.
So it's a pleasure. It's a joy. It's an honor to be able to share the space with you every time. Like I have the opportunity to be in your space. I'm better for it. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing and being so candid and open and taking the time, because I know you're really busy. So thank you so much for coming today.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. I've had fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that's all for today here at Empoderate, our new season. Isn't it exciting? We'll be back next week.